Then the southern Buddhist legends contained in the Deepvamsh and the Mahavansh, two very important chronicles from Sri Lanka, and the Pali version of the Samantapasadika, they place the consecration of King Ashoka 218 years after the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha. On this basis, the Buddha's death is computed to 483 BC, that is 265 years, 265 BC as the date of coronation of Ashoka, and then you add 218 years to it and it comes to 483 BC. The southern Buddhists had initially adopted 544-43 BCE as the date of the Buddha's death, but this was later calibrated by Geiger, Wilhelm Geiger and others, who pointed out that 60 years extra had been added into the chronology of the kings of Sri Lanka, and thus there was the need for a calibration. On the basis of the main arguments for the validity of Geiger's chronological calculations was a theory proposed by DMZ Vikramsinghe that a chronology starting from 483 BCE as the date of the Buddha's death was known and used in Sri Lanka until the beginning of the 11th century, and that the Buddha Varsha of 544 BCE was generally accepted at a later date. One important reason because of which the long chronology appears to have appears to be kind of logical is the fact that instead of the suspicious number of 100, which is a rounded off number clearly, in the short chronology, in the long chronology, the number 218 appears to be sort of not a rounded off number, and so therefore kind of more trustworthy. So Wilhelm Geiger's discussion of the chronology of the Buddha played an extremely important role in getting acceptance for the long chronology as against the short chronology. Later other scholars such as André Barreau and P.H.L. Egremont also worked on similar lines, and thus the long chronology became widely accepted as the basis for the date of the Buddha. However, the biggest landmark that provided justification for the long chronology came in the shape of the dotted record of Canton, Guangzhou. This record is contained in the text called Li Tai San Pao Chi, written by Fei Chengfang in 597 of the Common Era. In this record, it has been mentioned that according to the famous Buddhist master Sanghbhadra, there is a tradition which has been handed down from teacher to teacher for generations, namely after the passing away of the Buddha, Upali collected the Vinaya and observed the Pavarana on the 15th of the 7th moon of the same year. Having offered flowers and incense to the Vinaya on that occasion, he marked a dot on a record and placed it close to the Vinaya text. Thereafter, this event was repeated every year, and when Upali was about to depart from this world, he handed it over to his disciple Dask. So this record in Li Tai San Pao Chi goes on and says that from Dasak it was handed over to Sonak, and then from Sonak to Siggav, Siggav to Mogaliputta Tissa, and then to Chandavachi. In this manner, the teachers in turn handed it down to the present master of Tripitak. This is what Li Tai San Pao Chi says. Then this master brought the Vinay Pitak to Canton, present day Guangzhou, and when he decided to return to his native land, he handed over the Vinay Pitak to his disciple Sanghbhadra. Having observed the Pavarana and offered flowers and incense to the Pavarana at the midnight on the 15th of the 7th moon in the 7th year of the Yungming, according to Li Tai San Pao Chi, that is in the year 489 of the Common Era, he added a dot to this record as a traditional practice. the number of dots now amounted to 975. That is, in the year 489 of the Common Era, the number of dots was 975. A dot is counted as 1 year, and so when you now go back from 489, the year in which they stopped putting these dots on the Vinay record, you go back 975 years from the year 489, you come to this date of 486 BCE. So, on this basis, the figures supplied in this record, we get this date of 486 BC. As I said, 489, you go back 975 years from here, you come to 486 BCE as the year of the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha. But the Venerable Pachau, who worked on the dotted record, he was of the opinion that possibly 3 extra dots had been inadvertently added to this record. So, the actual number of dots should have been 972, not 975 in the year 489. In that case, he pointed out, the actual date of the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha should have been 972, go back from 972 years, go back from 489, and it comes to 483 BCE. As the two independent sources of information, one from Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan Chronicles, as I told you, the Divams and Mahavans, you use that data, do the calculation, you come to 483 BCE as the date of the Buddha, and then you look at the dotted record of Canton. This also provided substantially the same information. It has been accepted by the wider Buddhist scholarship that 483 BCE should be accepted as the correct date of the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha. And then it has been suggested that the long chronology is also supported by information available in the edicts of King Ashok. For instance, the Minor Rock Edict number 1 of Ashok refers to the figure 256, which has been interpreted to mean a time span of 256 years between the installation of this Rock Edict 1 and the Mahaparinirvana.